Good evening and welcome everyone to another episode of Ched Talks. Thank you so much for joining me here tonight. Ched Talks brought to you once again by Hookshot Media Productions that will bring you your best video content all across the globe. Now tonight I have a great show. We're focusing still on our leadership, fatherhood and leadership. We want to lead right up to Father's Day with men in the community that are making a difference, that are setting an example as leaders, maybe future fathers. And I want to introduce my guests tonight, two young men who are doing it right. They're entrepreneur, Cameron Crieghtney, and entrepreneur / rapper, performer, Trey West. Thank you guys for joining me here tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. So tonight's special episode, we wanted to really dedicate it to one of a fallen soldier, a good friend of Cameron's and Trey's here that was senselessly murdered last week while sitting in his vehicle. Now, it's an interesting topic, and I wanted to talk to the boys, to the men a little bit about how they see their community, and as future leaders, how we're going to make a difference. What are we going to have to do to actually, correct the trajectory that most of these younger guys are on? Like, what do you guys say? How is it going to make a change?
We go first.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a really tough situation. So I feel like it starts at the top, right? Mm-hmm. It starts with like the people who are in power, like the things that they do to not leave that place of power, right? And so it's on that scale. All we can do is work throughout our community so we can get to that point so that we can make changes. On a smaller scale, though, what we can do on a daily basis is just the type of things that I grew up having in my life, like sports and extracurricular and mentors, good fathers, like whatever it is, like just like solid role models in your community just to show you that, there's a better option. Because the way I just look at it is just like I have friends that are just like me, but they live 10 minutes away, and someone that's much worse, right? Mm-hmm. When they're done school, I'm going to ball practice. They're on road. We're both 12. That's something fun to do.
Right.
My older heads are playing ball. They're in the gym. They're making music, doing stuff like that. Their older heads are selling drugs. You know what I'm saying? Like, what are you gonna do? Super
in the streets.
You know what I'm saying? Like, what are you literally gonna do? Chill by yourself as a kid and play video games? Like, no, we're gonna go chill your older heads, right? So it's just like having less of that in the community, which starts once again at the top, because there's more opportunities for people. There's gonna be less people, in the streets selling drugs and all that kind of stuff. But then also, just having mentors around to show you that there's other things that you can do. Right?
I think that was like a piece of almost what I was gonna jump into. Like, for me, one of the big things is opportunity. Right. Once you take opportunity from a group of people and you no matter how you like to say it, but you prefer the other group of people and you give them more of the opportunity than, depending on what the demographic of where they live or what they look like or what, you know what I mean? You have a bunch of kids, a bunch of young guys, young girls and guys who are ambitious, who want things in life, who now grew up on social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, you name it. Sees all the nice things in life that they could possibly have that they don't have and didn't grow up having and are not used to being around. And they start just anything to get what I need to get,
Facts.
right? And it becomes you lose morality, right? Your morals come down a little bit because of your hustle and your grind. It's you start getting tunnel vision, money. So some of these people, I know some of these people, all they see is money. They don't see the consequences of their actions. They don't see how they affect other people. They don't see how they're affecting themselves or their family. All they see is money. As soon as I get the money, I'll be happy. To them, money equals happiness.
Right. That's a bit of the American culture. You think we're highly influenced by the U.S. culture? Do you think, I certainly have seen that for a long time, but a lot of things that are the people here tend to do, our communities, certainly is driven by what's happened in the U.S. They, as they always say, they sneeze and we catch a cold.
Yep.
Is that kind of influence still that strong?
I think it got stronger.
Yeah,
That's me.
Like Caravana, I'm joking now. A lot of things are like,
wow.
I can say this one thing though for sure. All jokes aside, like a lot of younger people definitely, like women adore that kind of culture, the kind of stuff, like the kind of unnecessary brought up see less things that go on in America. A lot of women out here glorify that stuff. You know what I'm saying? So mans are just watching music videos and all whatever foolishness they're seeing. Mans in America are doing that. They don't have to do that here.
Right.
The situation doesn't really pertain to that. You know what I'm saying? And they're just doing it. They're just acting out of character. They're doing things for the clout. Like unnecessary killings sometimes are literally just for clout. You know what I'm saying? Like we're in Canada.
My whole thing is we live in an extremely diverse city, right?
Right.
All of us pull from different places when it comes to what we decide to do with ourselves. But back to the social media thing and the exposure thing, 90% of the stuff that we see they had to literally. I learned this maybe a couple years ago. Our country has a law. There's only a certain amount of American TV they can play on our networks.
Right.
There's only a certain amount of American music they can play on our radio stations.
Right.
Because at one point, somebody who was smart enough sat down and said, hey, we have no identity as Canadians.
Right.
Everything that we do, from music to construction, everything that we do is based off of the United States of America.
Right.
And we consider ourselves to be better than the United States of America.
Right.
It makes perfect sense to me though, to be honest, because it's just like America's been around for a lot longer than we have.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They're black people that are there. We're brought over there, stripped of everything,
Makes
and just
sense.
started there. You know what I'm saying? Our black people built up identities in other places and came over here for the most part, unless you go to like Scotia and stuff like that, right? So it's just like we come over here and just like, we're now forming our own culture. Toronto's becoming a melting pot of a bunch of cultures, and like if you look at the accents or whatever, it's a mixture of Jamaican accent, Trini accent, African things, Arab people, like all types of stuff. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I definitely feel like it's just like we haven't been around for long enough to like develop an identity, and just like how we're talking about like in the hood, when you don't have one, you just gravitate to what seems to be working.
I agree and I disagree to a certain extent. In a sense, where I feel like anytime over, how long is Canada been a country?
I really should know that stuff.
Like, wow, I should know it too, but I was gonna say 150.
I was gonna say also busting some mad stupid.
So my whole thing is just like learn from them, but also learn from their mistakes.
Yeah.
There's certain points where I feel like some of the things that happen in America are happening out here. Not just look, these lines are invisible, man. You know what I mean? Land is land. We all share the same piece of North America, as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
Just because you live on the other side of the border, don't mean you're any different from me or my friends.
Yeah.
Right? We might sound different. We might have different beliefs, but that doesn't mean we're any. Which is, you see, you can get me started, Jerry.
No, this is what I want. I want people to be able to see the difference.
Yes.
Cool off. No, cool off. Tell it like it is. So I want to understand. And you're right. I think growing up in this country, I certainly saw an evolution. I saw things change from when I came here as a young kid, and to when I had kids. To I saw the changes in how things happen and how things work. And I think earlier when I was younger, I think we had more of an identity as Canadians. It's strange that it seems like we're losing more of our identity towards what the
I think
US
that's because of
culture.
the internet and the social media.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely,
100%,
100%, internet, social media. So, which brings me to the point is, do you believe that? We often argued that when you guys were younger, the argument was we always try to limit your exposure to things like the internet and the TV.
How did that work for you?
Well, it wasn't too bad. You guys didn't turn out too bad.
No, that was
right?
You didn't really answer my question. How did that work for you, Chetty?
No, limited for him as
until a certain point where.
Well, but here's my question.
All right, then.
Now, my question is, how much? So it's definitely influenced some people, right? Now, the younger generation has pretty much full access. Is that influencing them even more?
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to get into another subject a little bit, and that
stop me.
has
Stop me while I go.
But I'm not going to stop you. It has to do. But I want you to answer that first. How much more of an influence do you think it was then when you guys were younger compared to now?
Like night and day, you know what I'm saying? Like these kids there's no individualism, like it doesn't exist. But nowadays, I was actually talking to someone earlier, it's a random topic, but kids nowadays have like these things called spam accounts. You'd be having like one Instagram account, and then the next one's a spam account. Instagram account, they just act like everybody else. And they have a little private spam account where they have a little shred of individualism. You never see them because they're private, you know what I'm saying? So as far as I'm concerned with the public accounts, all these youths are the exact same. They do the same things from TikTok or whatever the heck they're seeing. But the kids are very intelligent.
Right. Yeah.
Or they're very knowledgeable. There's a difference. They have a lot of knowledge, but not proper guidance sometimes because they're just learning, they're getting parented by the internet. It's not really intelligence with a bunch of knowledge. And it's kind of scary sometimes. But
to add on to what he's saying, just before you continue, because he's going off right now, you have to remember the type of country we live in, right?
Right.
My mom has to work.
Right.
Every day.
Right.
She might get a couple days off, couple weeks off, but she got work.
Right.
I know you got work. I know. And I saw your mom at work today, live. She didn't even look at me. Mama, she didn't do nothing. You know what I'm saying? She's at work. I seen it. You know what I'm saying? So my whole thing is like, who's there to teach you?
Right.
When your mom or your dad comes home tired.
Right.
They came home just to make sure you ate, you bathed, your homework is finished.
Right.
And that you go to bed healthy. You know what I'm saying? But they didn't sit down and explain to you views and you know, and maybe not all, but as far as I'm concerned, my mother's priority was finance and thank you.
Yeah.
It was not education.
Well, I can tell you, growing up, and I've told the boys this, when I grew up, when I was growing up, and my mom certainly, that was the primary thing. She worked extremely hard, and all she could do is try to get food on the table. Now, once that was accomplished, then, you know, we were at the mercy of the system. You know, we were not able to, like, she didn't understand the system. So it was left up to me. And I mean, I came from a single parent family. It was left up to me to find my way throughout that. And now I had to learn to navigate the treacherous waters by myself. But thankfully, as like him, I had sports. I buried myself in sports, and so I had mentors and coaches that cared enough to help guide us, right? And I think there's a lot more of that here today, but whether or not they take the opportunity is the difference. Me, like I said, I spend more time in the gym than anything. So I don't know why that option is being presented, with a lot more to these younger generation. Why isn't it being accessed?
Instant gratification.
Okay, so
you don't go to the gym for 24 hours, come out the next day and you're D's, you're buff. It doesn't work like that. Right. So if you're not a type of person that, like yourself, understands it takes consistency, time, perseverance, work, ethic, all of that shit that you do to make sure that you not only healthy, but you look good and you feel good when you look in the mirror. If you are not the type of person that's done that already before the age that we're at now, it might be harder for you to turn into that person. Right. I think my only saving grace is the fact that I was like you when I was younger. I feel like I lost my way a little bit, but now I'm coming back to my actual self, how I feel when I felt confident and I felt, you know what I mean? I don't know if people, just like I said, I have certain outlets that I discovered early on because of my single parent household, and that when I felt like I couldn't talk to people or I had to do something. You know what I mean? So I feel like a lot of people my age or in my generation gave up on themselves too early.
Right.
And decided to lower morality to go and get things that they thought would add value to themselves.
Right. Okay. All right. I get it. Nice. Okay. So now, so some of these kids that are lost, or some of these, because it's not just kids. You have guys that your age and a little bit older, especially during this whole pandemic, that have it's almost like a lost group of people. What the heck are we going to do? How do we get them back? How can we, I mean, one of the reasons for this whole show is to get you guys as examples. How can you save a friend? What can people do to kind of?
That's tough.
Yeah.
That's a very tough question.
Yeah.
Well, it depends what you're saving a friend from, I guess. But like just from like the street life, like just making bad decisions in general.
There's
Or
that,
bad
but being that bad headspace. Like I said,
bad headspace.
when I was talking about the gym, I'm not talking about just going and working out. I'm talking about I used to wrestle. I used to play football, soccer, basketball. You know, I did everything
I did all of them.
yeah, but that kept me in the gym and away from trouble, right?
Yes.
You know, a lot of the kids, they have that option, and some of them are even in it. But then, you know, then there's the other life.
Because it's just like that life. There's like a lot of appealing things that come from it, like just like being cool, like just having clout.
We're talking about
like,
instant gratification,
right?
Yeah,
you don't
know
get
what I'm
that from.
In terms of that, also, what I want to say on that is just like I feel like nowadays, due to social media and all these things, like I even know about myself, like my attention span, I feel like is lower than when I was like 10.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
Which is crazy.
Which is insane.
I agree.
You know what I'm saying? So, and it's just like I feel like just like scrolling, just watching. Like I feel like it started with Vine. Like, it's not bad nowadays. Like minutes.
No,
like 7 seconds of like laugh. You have 7 seconds to make me laugh, or else you're not funny. You know
7 seconds.
Like, that's insane, bro. Or
Compared
else you're
to a
literally
whole
not
show,
funny person. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like these kids, like they want it. They need like all of it. The whole cycle needs to be over. Like I need to work out. Look in the mirror and get these. I'm the worst at that, man. I'll start a workout, look in the mirror, see a little pump, and like
You're done.
all right. It's just like it's not healthy. It's not a healthy mindset, bro. It can't be. But
you know when you used to do things to impress people that are around you, right? And it made you feel better about yourself,
Right.
whether if it was for yourself or not. Initially, irrelevant. The reason that you went through with it was to show people that you can do it,
Right.
and also show yourself that you can do it, right?
Okay.
That got magnified by social media.
Right.
Now you want to show everybody what you can do.
Right.
You know what I mean? So everybody, people go, this is in a Drake song, you quote some lyrics right now, musician, you feel me? Man said, Shorty went to God knows where, I can't remember what song, you know what I'm saying? But she went on vacation and spent all her time taking pictures of where she was, just so she could come home and show the people at home what she was doing.
Right. So she
Didn't even enjoy the vacation.
Yeah.
You go and you want, you click,
photo shoot.
but you didn't
You missed the experience. Yeah. Yeah.
touch the sand,
Yeah.
swim in the water.
People,
You know what I mean, ride the jet ski.
That is like a good point. Like
Some
for
people
in terms
don't even
of
have the
kids
money to
nowadays,
travel.
They're so like not present. You know what I'm saying? Like they're just like in a different. Like they live online. Their life is actually online. I swear. Like, they're unable to have conversations.
So that leads me to actually my next question. If that's the case, because I was talking the other day about how really it became a saving grace because of the pandemic, everyone had to stay in. And because everyone's staying in, once again, and I had to actually promote jumping on playing video games. Of course. You know why? Because the thought was for you to escape the constant work. And I'm talking for adults who have a job. If you're so caught up in work, you're not getting a break. And some people, for them, a bit of a relief was going and play a little bit of video games. So it's almost that you have to promote something that you were like trying to pull people back from. Because that mental state, people need a break. People need to release. However you get it.
What I can say is that one thing is like technology and all those kind of things. Like I'm hesitant to say like these kids are like effed, like they're sealed. You know what I'm saying? They're just a lot different. You know what I'm saying? They're completely different, and they're the ones who are gonna have to figure out how to like how to maneuver in a world where it's like that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like people now, there's just two sides to everything. Like sitting up playing video games all the time, like you're improving things mentally that you're going to be farther ahead than kids who don't even understand technology.
Some video games will teach you some stuff, man. I play Assassin's Creed.
All types of stuff.
I learned a lot of history from Assassin's Creed.
You know what I'm saying? But just
I learned a lot of history from that. You know what I'm saying?
Yo,
Egyptian, all of that.
I didn't know nothing about like I forgot. Never mind. But anyways, my point is just like like all this phone stuff. Like they're on their phones all day. Blah blah blah. Get off that phone. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like the whole mentality is just like, as you can see, it's changed over the years because like you're a lot more like that on. I'm a lot more honest about that stuff, you know, as we were younger and whatnot. And we got older, we opened up a virtual reality gaming arcade at a production company. Literally, we took away our video games and TV when we were younger. So like you see how these things happen,
that is so funny. Oh my God.
Okay, so in my defense,
why aren't you outside? Why aren't you outside?
In my defense, I would tell you that it was not intended to be a video arcade game place, right? So it certainly was.
Take off the 10.
Double.
Go to settings and take off the 10.
Yeah. So the idea was not to be for it to be a video arcade. It was more of an experience.
Yes.
For people to have different experiences.
Yes.
And in so doing, it just so happened that a lot of the experiences people gravitated to was the video arcade type. And, you know, obviously they have the helmet, so they're completely out of this world. But true to that, but I guess the point I'm trying to make here and the point we're trying to get to is, your generation had, I mean, certainly my generation, pre-video games and all that. And I mean, what I had was Atari.
Don't do yourself like that,
kind of
man. Come on.
Yeah.
You had games.
Hey, no, well, I had games, but I wasn't a gamer. I never did like games.
He had Pac-Man.
Pac-Man and Pong
Snake
and all that.
Street Fighter with the joysticks.
But my point is, I never liked them. I prefer.
Because they were garbage games.
I prefer to.
They were pretty garbage, right?
You
did, yeah.
But what about now? You don't even like them.
No, because you never liked them. Exactly. If you never like chocolate, you're not gonna like chocolate 20 years later. I mean, I'm telling you, that's how it works. Nobody put you on, Chetty. You know what I'm saying?
Well, they tried to put me on, but I just wasn't having it. I wasn't having it.
You didn't like Burnout?
I did that.
Need for Speed?
No, none of them. I prefer, like I said, I prefer to go and play a game of basketball or play a game of soccer or beat somebody up in boxing or something. I prefer to do that.
Violence.
Ken, Ken, say what's up.
Hey, Kenny, thank you for joining us. But my point is, so the evolution, we went to when we're more into sports. And then, obviously then video games and the arcade. And then now social media got such a grasp on everyone that it's just people are living this fake life, fantasy life. Mm-hmm. But how do you pull that back? How are we going to save these younger kids? And what happens to the generation that hasn't been born yet? What's going to happen? You guys are going to be the new leaders at that point. So what are you going to recommend?
I feel like there's going to be some sort of a wholesome breakthrough in technology at some point, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Something that's going to kind of get rid of that whole technological gap that like makes us, I don't know, just feel so off. Like something that's just going to make us feel like we're actually once again connected with the actual world, not just the online world, but like through technology somehow. I don't know what that's going to be.
Right.
Could be something good.
I think there's two types of people, right? There's people who know they're in some level of a matrix and feel that. Right. Not to take it to that super philosophical level, like it's not it's social media. But you have the guy like myself, or like I know my boy, who will get on social media and they take it with a grain of salt. Mm-hmm. Then you get people who go on social media and it's their life,
right? And
there's very few in between,
right?
You know what I mean? You cannot help people who do not want to be helped. So as far as the entire generation of social media and being born between 95 and 2005,
right?
It's very hard to help the people who feel that social media gives them self-value because they don't want the help. They don't. They love what they do on social media. If you look at these people's settings and you go on their phone screen time, it's excessive, but they don't realize it because just like back in the day when we would play video games for 5-6 hours and not go pee.
Right.
When you're doing something you enjoy, you don't realize. You don't eat. You don't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
but you know, regardless, there's always an opportunity for change and for learning.
Maybe bring awareness.
So, as Cameron said, there may be some big technological advancement that's gonna happen, but we're waiting for that to happen. I thought, you know, when this whole pandemic happened and it put everybody at a standstill, at first it kind of united the world. In my vision, I saw people were reaching out and people were more tolerant and people were uniting as a community. And then all of a sudden, boom, it all went. People just kind of, you know, part of frustration. But then I saw mental health issues. Yeah, no one thought it was going to last long. So mental health issues, and it brings me back. I guess you guys didn't answer the question: is how are we going to help those people? How do we say to a friend, look, you know, I managed to survive it without becoming a rumhead or a drug addict or whatever. How do we pull it back? Because people were just turning to all kind of substance for, you know, to save themselves.
It's really, really tough. Kind of like what Troy was saying is, I really believe that as well. It's a tough pill to swallow, but just like you said with the workout stuff, like now you're horrible with it, but like at least you have something going on because when you're younger, you're at it. You know what I'm saying? Me too, bro. If I wasn't playing ball and working out when I was younger, I'd be sealed. You know what I'm saying?
I think a lot of these problems too is they're not conscious of it, right? If you're developing these bad habits, I wasn't. Chetty, you know me, brother. You know, I did my from even before weed was cool and legal. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I was smoking.
Right.
But it wasn't until I look back at the last 10 years of my life where I said, holy shit, when did it get out of control?
Right.
When, where, and how do I stop?
Right. Yeah.
I didn't realize how serious it had gotten for me until it had gotten too far.
Right. Yeah.
That was the rude awakening. And I'm not the most stubborn guy. There's people way more stubborn than me. You know what I mean? So it's just like, as much as people tell you, no, don't do that, that's not good for you. Don't drive over there. That road is closed.
Never works.
Right. It never did.
So you can do your best at. My thing is, bro, when I need help, this is my boy. Hey, I'm tripping.
Yeah.
Speak to me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Tell me something.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? This is what I'm thinking about doing, or this is what I'm thinking about, and he'll, because if people have to look into themselves, realize that they need a little help, and actually reach out for it, because there's people in everyone's life that will reach back.
Yeah.
I believe. So without that initial reach, though, because like my thing is, if Cam's over here and I'm just doing all this, you know, if he's not reaching back, there ain't nothing going on. Now there's something going on. You feel me? So it's like me trying to. I might even end up pushing him away because he might not feel like, oh, you know, maybe Troy doesn't understand me, or maybe he lost respect for me, or you know, they feel judged.
Okay, so then what do you say to the parents and the leaders out there that are losing their own kids?
Be more sympathetic.
No, but there are some that are sympathetic.
I feel like oftentimes it's the people that don't even know what's about to happen.
Right.
I feel like you just have to check up even when everything seems fine. You know,
it's usually the people that aren't okay that seem okay every day.
Okay,
right? Because what I recommend from when I used to coach, and when I used to coach sports, and what I found is that the kids that came from well-to-do families and seemed to have both parents and everything, some of them had issues, but they wouldn't talk to their parents.
Yeah.
So what I would promote is that you speak to their close friends and you ask the close friends to check in on them, because oftentimes that's who they're willing to confide into, right?
As a parent, you're saying.
As a parent.
But
as a parent, it's indirect.
Do you understand how insightful that is, though, Chetty? I don't think you even.
Oh, I used to do it all the time. I used to talk to
that's what I'm
guys.
trying to explain to you. Do you understand as a parent how insightful that is?
Yeah, I do.
You know what I mean? Like we grew up in, like I got Caribbean background parents. They think parenting is work, paycheck, home table, back to work.
No, I definitely understand that. And to some degree, my mom was like that. You know, it's about earning, and it's not about and give every dime. You don't those kind of things. But what I learned early was that I had to find other ways. What the first thing that we did was consciously is I made my home kid friendly.
Yes.
So then everybody wanted to hang out there.
Of course.
Right. And then I would, whenever I drove them anywhere, I would be a fly on the wall. I wouldn't say a thing, but I would ingest everything that they were saying because kids often forget that they're grown-ups in the car.
I heard this on the radio today. It was actually somebody saying, you remember that saying where they say kids should be seen and not heard? Do you know how toxic that is?
Yeah, I know. I never.
You understand how toxic that is? As even as an entire generation of parents believe in that, like it's religion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That screws your kid up. Now your kid doesn't believe he or she has anything important to say.
Right. I fully understand that. And the generation that really lived that, it's funny that, well, we don't know, but most of them seem to have gotten out okay. But then the next generation seem to have really suffered for it.
Yeah,
right. The younger generation is that. It's something that I never subscribed to. I often made sure that they had a voice. We often, my wife and I made sure that they had the opportunity to speak. I can reference that with a friend that years ago I was walking in the YMCA with the boys, and one of them ran off and did something, and then my good friend saw me reasoning with him and telling me, hey, you can't do that, and you know what he said? He said, what are you doing? Reasoning with him. He goes, you have to just yell at him and scare him so he just jumps back. He goes, my son, when I speak, I put the fear of God into him. And so if he's going to cross the street and there's cars coming, as soon as he hear me yell his voice, he was going to freeze. And I said, yeah, that's great. But what about when you're not there? So what I wanted my sons to do is if I'm not there, they would say, what would Dad do?
Yeah,
what would, how, reason? They had the ability to reason and to think on their own.
Not be ordered.
Yeah, that's right. But no, because you can never rule by fear. If you rule by fear, what happens as soon as you're not there? That anarchy. It's complete anarchy.
And you know what? My problem with the entire situation, you got fear, you got discipline. There's a thin line, right? Mm-hmm. In terms of how you raise your children. Some people use fear as a disciplinary tactic.
Yes,
right?
I know.
But a lot of people forget fear is not the only level of disciplinary tactic there is.
100%.
There's a lot of other options that you have to use.
Right.
Whatever your kid likes, take it from them.
Yeah.
Whatever time they go to bed, make it 2 hours earlier. Yeah. They love outside, keep them inside. They like juice, make them drink water. It's that simple. You want to start my whole thing is people so this is generationally scarred. You have people that were raised by people who don't know how to raise people now raising people who don't know how to raise people. Tell me I'm not spitting. You know what I'm saying? No, for real. Because my whole thing is to a certain extent, no matter whether my parents or my father or my friend's parents, to a certain level, depending on how your parents raised you, you have a certain level of scar tissue. Right? Mm-hmm. And that molded your behavior and how you were as a parent, whether you like it or not. Right.
Mm-hmm. Just on that, I find it very interesting how people get raised, and then when they turn 18, if they can be raised wrong, once they turn 18, it's your fault now. You know what I'm saying? But you all those years. Sorry, continue.
Right.
So to me, it's just I know I'm going to be great at it. You know what I mean? And the reason I know I'm going to be great at it is because of the things that I went through. Right? You have people out there that don't feel the same as me.
Right.
They don't know the type of father they're going to be.
Right.
They're not confident the way that I'm confident.
Right.
Because they're unsure not only of themselves, but of how they were parented.
Right.
I'm not unsure of how I was parented. I know what went down. I've seen everything that went down. I deduced. I made my own calculations. I used logic and sense, and then I moved forward accordingly.
Right.
You know what I mean? Not everything was flowers and dandelions. My father isn't perfect. My mother isn't perfect. I love them to death. They're still my people, and they will forever be my people. Right. So how do I move forward now and make myself a better version of both of them as a parent?
Right. And that's where it is. It's about your own decisions, because I can honestly tell you that, when I look back growing up in a single parent home, and that's why I always emphasize the importance of fathers in their lives, right? We have a lot of people that are watching tonight that probably, they don't have their fathers in their lives, or their kids, the fathers are not in their lives. And I always say it's very important for the mothers to include the fathers, no matter what their walk of life is. So
in the right way.
Yeah, well, certainly in the right way.
Because you got some moms that just include dads for discipline.
Well,
all of a sudden,
Yeah,
your
there's
dad's
bad
the
guys.
boogeyman.
Right.
You know what I mean? You don't even want to see him. I'm gonna get beat. I'm going to daddy's house. Why am I going to daddy's house? What do I do? You know what I'm saying? Me and daddy never do nothing fun. What are you setting over there? What I do?
No, I'm not just talking about discipline. I'm talking about an example of what it takes to be a man.
Yeah.
There's no way a woman can teach that. A woman can teach how to be a good person, a decent person, but they can't teach how to be a man, and that's extremely important as the child develops.
I agree.
But these are kind of conversations that I always think, it's great that you guys are conscious and aware of it, because going in, when you have your own kid, all the things that you knew all of a sudden start to say, oh my gosh, what?
You gotta stay woke, Chevy.
But you have to stay woke, and you got to make sure that you follow the plan the best you can, right? We all do the best we can with what we have, but being self-aware and being mindful of the things that what the needs of those kids are the important things. My generation, where we failed with our kids, I think we became more of as they call them, helicopter parents. We hovered and we saved them from everything rather than allowing them to make the mistakes to grow from it. If you're not going to make the mistakes, you're not going to grow from it. So as a result, I find that a lot of, going back to what I mentioned earlier, the coping skills are not there. A lot of people just don't know how to cope. So when challenging times present themselves, they go into depression, they go into, a fit of rage. They don't have the emotional intelligence to be able to cut it back and say, yo, look, how do I resolve this? And to me, emotional intelligence is very simple. It's the ability to filter, not control, your subconscious mind from your conscious mind, and being able to project an outcome that's going to be better for you.
So let me rebuttal you slightly. I think you're right. I also respectfully disagree to a certain extent. Mm-hmm. I am a highly emotional person. You know what I mean? I write love songs. You know what I'm saying? Like a very emotionally in terms of myself.
Right.
The people are close to me, of course. Like I'm very observant, but to a certain extent, there are still times where I can't control my own emotions.
But I'm not saying you're
very emotionally conscious.
But again, I'm not saying be perfect.
It's about trying your best. It's just knowing that you're going through that is the whole point.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
And imagine just freaking out, they don't know what the hell's going on.
Right.
Okay.
And then
you always know what
and
the
I always know.
And also be mindful that I didn't say control.
Yes.
Because
That's
sometimes your emotion, that was the whole point of it, is to filter, right? When the subconscious mind tells you to do something, the ability to filter it and choose the right things to come out of it is very important.
Yes.
If you're unable to filter, then it all comes out to what you saw that was
crazy.
like, you lose.
Yes.
You see people that get into it, you bump into them,
Yes.
and they're
ready to go to jail.
Yeah.
Maybe accidentally.
Maybe accident is that
A lot of
word.
men don't do
Where's
that.
that word come from? Accident, right? Like it means
Maybe he didn't mean to.
Absolutely. That's what I'm talking about.
That's
So being conscious of it is a great start. And I've always said, just like people talking about balance is not a thing. Balance is just trying your best and being mindful that when you're in that moment, you're completely present. And I think that will bring you about to what it is that you're looking for.
I think you're right.
Yeah, but your challenges as future fathers is going to be just that. How do you now tell the mothers? How do you tell your future wives or baby maras? How do you communicate with them that your importance in their lives, no matter what the situation is between the adults?
That's a good question.
So there's our audience. Our audience is right there. What do you say to the young girls that your future wives? How do you tell them to be present?
Don't get me started on them.
Yeah, that's so funny.
It's important. Hey, listen, it's important. It's important because you know what? I'm hearing all kinds of people talking about, the women are talking about, the men are no good, and the men are talking about the women are no good. So who are we talking about?
Here's what I'm gonna say. On the topic of emotional intelligence, I feel like a part of emotional intelligence is like being able to separate lust from love, and like being able to know who's like the right person who respects you as an actual man, and like can like celebrate you as a man, so, and therefore will understand that you have a youth. Like this kid needs to be around this man in order to grow up and be a proper person.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So like that's a combination of you being lit yourself. You have to be a good man yourself.
Right.
You know, I can be intelligent to do that, and then find the proper woman and putting those two things together. And it's obviously easier said than done, but as the more you work on that emotional intelligence, the more you know yourself, I feel like you'll be able, like your intuition will be able to like help you make a better educated decision. Because I've also heard that you might think you know Oman and I'm leaving, and you know it's a completely different person after that. You know what I'm saying? So, give me Keisha. So you know what I'm saying? It's just like it's definitely like easier said than done.
Right.
But I feel like it's literally just like being conscious as possible, because you can never be perfect. When you say you can't control, so be as conscious as you possibly can, and try and just make that decision in terms of the person. Because you can't change a woman from like, if she doesn't believe that like a man needs to be in a child's life, like I don't really think you could change that. Like that's probably from her upbringing of like her father having issues and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Like can't really change that. You know what I'm saying?
What was the root of the question?
Well,
I'm like, it kind of super listening to Cam, so I'm like, oh, and I'm like, hey, where did it start?
You're just saying like, yeah.
well, the question really is you know, you guys are going to be struggling with the future with your future mates, right? And as the stewards, you know, you guys are now going to be the stewards. You're going to be raising the next generation when they come up. What do you say to the females, the women in your lives, in terms of how you think the kids should be raised? Let's just say, what would you say to them?
Cooperation, kindness, love, patience. It's always about the kid, right? I think a lot of us get caught up in our own emotions and what was happening in our personal lives, whether it was with you and the baby father or you and the baby mother, and you forget that there's a kid in between all of that senseless drama, and that sometimes tomorrow is not promised for neither one of you. So the best thing you can do is set an example, not just for your child, but for yourself as a person, on how anybody would want to act and want to be in front of their kid. I was raised in a single mother household. Not everybody gets along, gets married, and just perfect, happy family. You know what I mean? It's not always like that. You know what I mean? But having a relationship with your father should have nothing to do with your father's relationship with your mother.
Facts.
Right.
Yeah.
And we keep tying it to that.
Yeah, facts. I could even say this to go a step further. I feel like it's important for a child to have a good man in their life, and that might not be the father. You know what I'm saying? So
I've had stepdads
right?
that I
Seem
understand.
But I'm just saying, like,
mess with those guys. Shout out.
Yeah. So it's just like kind of lost my train of thought.
Have a man in there.
Yeah. Say maybe it's not the father, you know. I don't want to just say this like, yo, just make sure.
Grandpa.
I'm just saying, no matter what is going on with the man, like try and make sure he's in the child's life. Like some guys are really unfit to do that. You know what I'm saying? So yeah,
for sure.
But you have to completely evaluate the situation. Like, okay, maybe this guy, you know, ain't the greatest, but I have like my father, you know, your brother, or whatever it is.
Some kind of positive.
To have a positive male figure in their life, like however you find that. Coach, like whatever.
You know, one of the things from the Caribbean that I actually really do like, from like in terms of their ways of, they say it takes a village.
Yeah.
Right. So on one hand, children should be seen and not heard, but on the other hand, it takes a village.
Right.
Healthy, very unhealthy.
Well, I think in the communication, it goes a little bit plain. I mean, it's just like when people read the Bible, there are literal interpretations, and then there are interpretations that were taken out of context, right? The seen and not heard is, I think it's more a derivative.
When adults are talking.
Yeah, when adults are talking, but it's not that you shouldn't have an opinion. And this, I guess, is us trying to interpret what they meant. It's just that we say in order to gain wisdom, you have to make mistakes, right? So essentially, you're not going to speak until you gain that wisdom. So you're not going to advise anyone, right? So, and oftentimes a lot of it was aired because kids didn't know what was good for them, right? Yeah. They just blurted out anything or said anything. I think that's where it was coming from, a good place. It seems a little bit, it certainly is a bit extreme, but if you just let a kid run around and say anything, they would just run. Go but there should be a time and place as what they're trying to say. So in defense of that, I think that's what they're trying to get through. Now, it depends on obviously the individual to temper that and to make and certainly we did as parents. We were taught that, but I think my mom was a little bit. No, she wasn't. My mom wasn't at all. No. My mom. I knew how to take what was serious and what was not. She would say things jokingly and have threats and stuff like that. But these guys know as their grandmother, she always had these threats. She was known as gangster grandma.
She told me all the time. I don't mess with her.
But it was more of a thing that they. But at the same time, she'll turn around and give you more love than you ever imagined, right? So it's that thing where, that masculinity, femininity came from, because we all have both in us. It's now, when do you draw and what? And especially as single parents, they had to draw on that masculinity for their own protection and from the protection of their home. So that's where it came from. The younger generation with the involvement of all in their household, I think your generation is blessed with more information than anything. I think it's about utilizing that information to first be self-aware and understand how that information can help you. I used to say, we go back to when people used to say, well, there are certain things that I used to think I knew when I was a kid, but then you grew up and then you get to understand it is what you know and what you don't know, right? So I think that's where they kind of using those terms to kind of temper the reality of the situation.
I feel like I've only ever heard that situation. Or heard that really said though, and it's in a situation where like someone said something and the kid said why.
Yeah.
I've never seen a kid just trying to voice his opinion and someone's like, that's an unintelligent opinion. Shut up. It was always just like, yo, why? My bedtime's not for an hour. Like, yo, who's this kid talking to me?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But like, I know you're saying that for sure.
Yeah. But like I said, as future parents, that's going to be your role. Definitely it's going to be a challenge, but because you guys are so mindful and I'm very respectful of your the way that you guys are growing up and the decisions that you're making and being self-aware, I think that's going to make a huge difference when you become leaders of this next generation. Mm-hmm. So kudos to you. Hopefully that, you guys will continue to forge forward, be good fathers and set good examples. But I want you to tell me or tell the audience now, how do you do that as a community? What do you recommend that, young men of all walks of life, what do you say to them about, raising kids and being leaders and father figures?
I would say don't think you know it all. You know what I'm saying? Just like with anything else, the first thing, like being really smart is realizing that you don't know nothing, right? You know what I'm saying? So it's just like as a father, I feel like, or a parent, mother, father, a lot of these parents just think that they know everything and they think that their way is the highway and like that's how it's gonna go, and they're not open to learning by any way, shape, or form. You know what I'm saying? So they're not gonna improve. They're not perfect. Their kid's gonna come out the same way or worse. No better. You know what I'm saying? Unless the kid is just an anomaly. Like a lot of kids are just different. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's find it out. But I feel like it's just about being open to change and being open to like learning things from people that you might not even agree with. Open to the way the world is becoming and understanding that, things just don't necessarily work the way that they used to. You know what I'm saying? So being sensitive.
My advice would have been to be vulnerable with your kids. Mm-hmm. Your kids are probably the only people on this planet that actually offer you unconditional love until you ruin that for yourself. Mm-hmm. Right? There's something that you have to do as a parent to ruin your kids' love for you because you're Superman from the time they're born, or Superwoman from the time they're born. It's something that you have to do to diminish that picture of you in their head, right? So patience, be vulnerable, talk to your kids, no matter how old or young they are.
Don't let things boil up.
Don't talk to them. And, discipline them, but if you have to hit your kid, use it as a last resort. I'm not saying don't hit your kid. Sometimes you need a box, fam. Sometimes you have a box. Fam, one time, my dad's house, fam, I'm lighting toilet paper on fire just to see if it will burn.
That's a box still.
Unsafe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like certain things, of course.
Yeah.
But always try to exercise your other options first, because there are so many other options.
Right.
And I think that.
So you think you should have explained before?
No, he should have beat me. No, for sure. And my thing is, I was a rowdy kid, so I know. So half the times I got beatings, I deserve that. Like, the Bible would tell me not to do something, I'll go out of my way to do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh yeah, you know what I'm saying? I got authority problems. You know what I'm saying? Grew out of that, but. You know what I mean? Like, I needed to be beat. So it's not that I'm against
specifically
that.
said use all the options. In that situation, there's only one option.
Thank you.
You.
Yeah. Use all the you're fine. Use all the options. It's just
all
go through the list first. Have a list. You know what I'm saying? Have a time out. Don't fit this one. You know what I'm saying? Taking away the phone. Don't fit this one. Let me cut off the cable. This one's serious. You know what I'm saying? Maybe if I do all the three on the first of the list at the same time, I won't have to beat him. You know what I'm saying? Hey, this thing. Love your kids. That's all that.
Love your kids.
Love your kids wholeheartedly, fully, unapologetically. Love your kids.
So as we roll to Father's Day, I want to first of all thank everyone for joining us tonight. We had two great guests. It was a great conversation. And, you know, our world is in good hands, is in very good hands, because a lot of our kids, even, no matter what people may think out there, they have it going on. They are smart. They have a good understanding of what it takes to be leaders. They have a great understanding of what it takes to be parents. And there's a legacy that's grooming, and we just have to be patient ourselves. We have to understand that there are other people out there that are in need of our love or help or vulnerability. And we have to say a very happy Father's Day to everyone out there that's father and potential father.
Mm-hmm.
That's
all the stepdaddies too.
All the stepdaddies, all the coaches, all the ones that have, stood strong.
All the father figures.
And help.
On that, another dedication. I don't know if you saw one of JR's boys that got killed yesterday. It was yesterday the 15th, the 14th. On the 14th, the kid was shot, and he has a child due in September.
So
yesterday.
Dedication to him. I'm not sure. I don't know him personally, but just send some love and respect his family. Whatnot,
and to your friend.
Yeah, to Kieran for sure.
What's Kieran's last name?
Kieran
Brathwaite. Kieran Brathwaite, who died last week, gunshot wounds. You know, again, the one thing that I wanted to say, and the one thing that hurt me with, understanding that he's a good kid, and I don't know the details of his life, but I just want everyone to think, really, what's the first thing that comes to mind when we hear someone gunned down in senseless violence? We oftentimes think about what they could have done, what they did to deserve it. And that's just a skewed perspective that the media set us up for. And I hope that we can change that. I hope that we can look into ourselves and say, no one deserves to be shot down like a dog, regardless of what it is they've done. And I know from how you guys know Kieran, he was a great guy. And from what I knew of him, he was a good person. And, I just hated the fact that sometimes, and I know I had the conversation with a few people, and they're thinking, well, geez, I wonder what he did. Why do we have to even go there?
Because they're convinced he had to do something.
Well, no, because that's just the perspective of our community.
I feel like it's just
our community.
It's so unbelievable that it would happen to someone who didn't deserve
it. If he had drowned
or
something, you know what I mean? If it was something else, people wouldn't be jumping to that conclusion. It's because he was gunned down. They're assuming
it's just like, there's no way somebody could possibly
just be gunned down
such
for
a good
no
person.
reason.
There's no way.
It happens every day.
Yeah.
Different parts of the world every day. Somebody gets shot for no reason.
Yeah.
And they might lose their life.
Yeah. And it's happening so frequently in our community. That's why I said, you know what, we have to go now, but I really want to thank you guys for coming, speaking openly, speaking honestly. Thank you for helping me, and thank you for helping me to understand that there is a future for the younger generation. Thank you everyone for, we do have some questions, comments. Let's get to those. First of all, let's roll. Teresa, all good points. Kids have to feel like they have a voice. Otherwise, they grow up, like you said, afraid of everything. Yes, that's very true, Teresa. Thank you for that. Ken, kids are told lies from some parents and their friends. That's true too. They, oftentimes, kids may have afraid from listening to the ones that are most important to them. Mm-hmm. And it could have been from a disciplinary reason that they turn against you. It could have been from a disagreement that they turn against you, and they unfortunately turn to people who may not have their best interest at heart. So Kenny, thank you so much for voicing that. Someone says the pandemic just enhanced social media. Agreed. It did enhance social media. That's agreed. That's what we talked about. But we were hoping that as we open up, that people are able to find themselves, find their voices, find their outlet, and don't let it be don't be defined by the pandemic. Certainly, we have options to be able to pivot and become better people, but we have to look out for our neighbors and we have to look out for our friends and our family. So that's what we have to do in order to get past this. Stacy said, great topic, guys. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you, Stacy. Clap from Nancy. Thanks, Nancy. Teamwork. 100%. Yes, it takes a village and it takes everyone to hop into our community. Happy Father's Day, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining. Nancy, I love this topic, and thanks for the laughs and your wise words. Well spoken. Okay. And cheers to a bright future. Yes. Again, thank you again, Nancy. It's been a pleasure. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. We do have a Father's Day special that we're going to be recording, and we're going to air it on Father's Day. So look out for that. And please, if you haven't already done so, if you're watching me from YouTube, please click on the link, subscribe to YouTube where you can get some more of this content. And again, once again, thank you so much for joining here tonight. And thank you guys. Good night.